Hello there and welcome to the latest episode of the Middle-earth Play-by-Mail fan channel. And I've got a bit more of a technical setup this time. I've got a new microphone, so I hope you can hear me without too much rustling or crackling in the background. And I'm trying out a new bit of software so that we can have me as a little inset while I just go around a few things on my laptop and we can look at things together. And I'm set up like this because I want to have a look at JOverseer. Now this video is probably more for those who are new to the game or are coming back to the game after a bit of a long layoff and who are wondering how it is they can best get the most out of the game and the files they get through from Middle-earth when they are set up. And the answer is by using the JOverseer program, which is something that's been, I believe, put together and maintained by the playing fan community. And it's a wonderful tool. Before I get into more of the detail on that, just a reminder that Middle-earth Play-by-Mail, as the name of the game implies, started out life as a paper-based system. And the printed paper would get sent, your printed return would get sent to you through the post, and you would write out your orders by hand and post them back. As the early 90s moved through to the mid and the late 90s, email kicked in, and some people, if they were technologically savvy enough, would type out their orders and send them back in. But since then, early 2000s, there was originally a program called Palantir, which you could use to compile your orders, and it also very usefully drew up a map that helped you look and visualize what was happening. But since I returned after a few years layoff back in 2018, I noticed that JOverseer is the one that is in use, and it's a cracking piece of software for helping you deal with the complexities of putting orders together and double checking that, and also just seeing and visualizing everything that's on there in the game. Now, it's very useful if you are in a team game that isn't a gunboat non-diplomacy game, so you're actually allowed to talk to your teammates. If you all share your files with each other every turn, so you can all upload them to your own versions of JOverseer, and then you all have the access to the same information on the same side. It really does help planning and coordination. Right, as I said, this video is largely for anyone who's new to the game or returning who doesn't know anything about JOverseer and wants to know a bit more about it. I'm sure there are people who are watching this who are a bit more experienced in playing the game than myself who will blush at some of the errors I make, but hopefully I'll be able to show you enough so if you are new to it, you can set yourself up with some turn files and get yourself going and just have a feel of how to get around it. So, I mean, obviously the first thing you'll need to do is actually set your game up. Now, when you are registered for a game and your first turn comes through, for each position you will get two files. One is a PDF. You can just open that and read that in a PDF file, and that's traditionally what would have been printed on paper and posted to you. So that's how you can actually go and read through your turn and see all the things that are happening. But there's also a .xml file, and that .xml file is the file which contains all the information that JOverseer needs to translate it into something meaningful that it can use. And another advantage is if you have the XML files from your allies and your colleagues on the same side as you, JOverseer will compile all of them so you can see everyone's information. It really is a very powerful tool. Now, starting off, to start a game, you just go up to the game menu and click onto New Game. And all you have to do there is you have to select which particular version of the game you're in. If you're starting out your first game, it's probably going to be 1650. Then the number of your nation, so 10 for Noldo, 1 for Woodman, whatever it is. So we might put in 10 for Noldo. And then the game number. So if Clint says, oh, you've been allocated to game 732, you would put that in there, and then you would click OK, and it would set it up. And because the original setups for 1650 are hardwired into the game, you know, an army of however many heavy infantry at a specific location will always start in turn 0 at that location. The only things that vary between games are the starting places of some of the characters and maybe how much goods and gold and so forth are produced in particular population centres, and perhaps what your starting gold level is. But otherwise, a lot of the things are still fixed. You're not suddenly going to start as North Gondor and find you haven't got Minas Tirith and Pelagir, for example. Right, well, I'm not going to click OK here because I don't actually have a new game to set up and show you, but if you go through that, I'm sure it will follow. So instead, I will load up a game I already have on the go. So I'm going to go down to Recent Games, and I'm going to pick up Game 73. Now, Game 73, it'll take a little while to load because this is actually this is an old game, one that's finished. I'm not going to show a game that's live. I might give information away to the enemy. And this game ran for about 46 turns. It was an absolute monster and it was great fun. I held 2 positions on this. The first one was these population centres in red, which was the Fire King. In Mordor, I was playing on the Dark Servant side, and then in yellow down here and across here with Vermag as well, this spread out southern nation was the Quiet Avenger, the 7th Nazgul, and yeah, that was a really, really fun position to play. But I'm not here to tell you about that particular game. I'm feeling quite tempted to make some gameplay videos about Game 73 because it's the main game I've got where I have all the XML files and it's over, so I can record and talk about it and not give away secret information. Right, so when it comes up, you'll find at first that you haven't got all this information because obviously I have all the information imported for turn 0 from when I played the game back in the summer of 2018. So what you'll need to do is you'll have to go again up to Game and you'll have to import results. So if you click on Import Results, and you will find that whenever you get your turns through, I would strongly advise that for each game you're in, I'll just go up one more, I've set up a folder for Game 73, Fire King and Quiet Avenger, and within that I create a subdirectory called Turns, and within each subdirectory I then have, I've messed that up, within each subdirectory, I'll just have another go at that. Within each subdirectory I then create a folder for each turn which I number, and then when you open that, into that I will save all the individual turn files, both PDFs and XMLs, and then when I come along and I import turns from file, it will go through and it will update all the information that's got there. And you can see along here it says read 10 XML files and 9 PDF files. At the moment it's crunching all that data in. It says do not close this form, so we'll give it a minute to do that. And when it finishes we'll be able to have a look around and I'll see the information that it shows. Taking a little bit of time. I'm wondering if I might have slightly messed something up by going and having a look around the file structure. It's a very good thing, I would advise, to organise your files with a separate folder for each turn. It means that if you need to look back, oh, it's finished now. If you need to look back and find a turn from, several turns ago, you know easily where it is to find it. Right, so click OK, and if you're doing this for real in your first turn 0, suddenly all the information will be there from all the different turn sheets that there are. Now, I will start at turn 0 here. So imagine turn 0, you're playing the Fire King. This has just loaded up. Now, you've got a map. You can scroll by pressing Control and the mouse button to scroll out so you can see a big picture. That is recognisably Middle-earth, and you've got the misty mountains there, and a big forest there is Mirkwood, Mordor round there, Great River Anduin, Southern Mountains, and so forth. A lot of places we recognise from the maps that are in the back of Tolkien's books. And you can zoom in a lot closer than that to really get a closer up view. when you're doing some close-up work, but I like to have it on this view here, so I will run along with this for now. Now, the base map underneath each hex, you've got the number of the hex that's written at the top. So if I was to click on that, on the right hand side over here, you have a window pane which gives you all the information about what you currently know is in that hex. So if I go and click over on a population centre for Khan Doom, it tells me all about Khan Doom. I'll look at population centres in a minute. But first of all, the colours of the hexes indicate the sort of land terrain that it is. Dark blue and light blue are open seas and coast, respectively. Then if you have this sort of white, light grey colour, that is shoreline. Note that shoreline follows its way up alongside major rivers. The pale green here is plains. In all respects, in terms of production, it's the same as shore. It's just not next to the sea or a big river. The dark green is forest. You get a small number of these sort of yellowy green tiles there, swamp. There you go, you can have a look over, that's that sort of wet wang over there, largest swamp in Middle-earth. And then you've got yellow is desert, quite a bit of desert there in Mordor. Light blue, what am I talking about? Light brown are hills, and dark brown are the mountains. So the very recognisable sort of rectangular shape of Mordor with all the Nazgul hiding within. You also have these grey lines which represent roads. When roads come to a river, rivers are a thick blue line for a major river. A major river, you can't cross it unless there's a bridge. And the light blue lines, they are minor rivers which you can cross, but there's a movement penalty. If there's a brown line across, that means that there is a bridge. And if there is a black line, it means there is a ford. I think you only get fords over minor rivers. So that's some of the main things around the terrain. The other thing to note, you'll see straight away, is you've got lots of these blobs all over everywhere, and these are population centres. So let's go back. Let's assume you're playing the Fire King position as I was in this game, and you'll note that within your colours, which is a black background with red edging, you have a grand total of 6 population centres. So there is one here. This is Barad Ungol at the head of the Ithil Pass, which I'll just show you in the population, in the hex view box over here, is a major town with a castle. It belongs to the Fire King, and it has 75 loyalty. Quite good loyalty at the moment. It's the start of the game. There's time for them to get rebellious yet. And then you have LE, BR, ST, MI, and so forth. These shows you what goods you produce there. The top line is what you produce each turn, and the bottom line is what you have in reserves. And it's leather, bronze, steel, mithril, food, mounts, timber, and gold. So that's Barad Ungol. I'll go on to armies and characters in a little bit. I've also got Baradwath. That also starts at 75 loyalty. But when we look there, yes, it's got some food and reserves. It also produces some bronze and some steel, and there's some gold. And let's have a look at one of the mountain camps. So we have a mountain camp, Lag Dijtumar, which has got a lower loyalty because it's only a camp of 30. But they've got some pretty good production going on. They've got some bronze, they've got some steel, and 1,000 gold. From memory, this one down here, this was a great camp. 3,000 gold per turn just from a camp. That's great fun. A lot of gold and good support coming from there. When you click as well, you will see there is a little drop down arrow here. These appear for several things. So if I crop over here, you can see you also have drop down arrows here for each army and also for each character. But if we have a look and click here, Barad Ungol Castle, we can get some information about the major town here. So very useful to do is one here which says Pop Center Attack Statistics. So if you click on that, a little pop-up comes along. It tells you it automatically calculates for you what the strength of Barad Ungol is if it were to be attacked, and approximately how many ENHI are required to capture this pop center, and how many ENHI will be lost by the attacking army. ENHI stands for Equivalent Naked Heavy Infantry. Why are the heavy infantry naked? Well, if you recruit heavy infantry and you don't equip them with anything, so they just start with bog standard wooden weapons and no armor, that is the effectively one naked heavy infantry. And within the game and within JOverseer, that is used as a sort of a standard unit of currency when calculating the strength of armies. Because what would happen if you had, say, 2,000 heavy cavalry with steel armour and steel weapons? What would their strength be relative to 5,000 naked heavy infantry? So when we come along to the armies here, so you can see that there are 3 armies starting at Barad Ungol. There's one under Commander Shagrat, one under Commander Shogmog, and one under Commander Uklurg. And underneath it gives a quick summary. So we'll look at Shagrat here. 600 HI heavy infantry, 600 LI light infantry, 900 AR archers. It's got 9,240 food, which means it is fed for this turn. So if it needs to move, it will be counted as fed. And inf means it's infantry. If we were to go down here, you will see this Long Rider army contains only cavalry, heavy cavalry and light cavalry. So that counts as fed with the amount of food it's got, and it is cavalry, which have a different basis for calculating their movement points around. You will also see on the icons, if they're cavalry, they have this little sort of horse icon. Up here, it's more this sort of oval blob for infantry. So let's get back to Commander Shagrat. We'll have a look at his little drop-down item here. There's a range of things that we can have a look at here. So you can toggle the fed property. Let's say that you have an army that's unfed. If you right-click on any hex, you can do some calculations on movement. So let's say we've got an unfed infantry army here, and it will show how many movement points it costs and how far you can get. So let's say we've got an unfed army here, and we're going to move into the desert. First of all, we move down a road, that costs 3 points. And then we move another hex, that'll cost another 6 points, taking us to a total of 9. And then we wouldn't be able to move any further because we can only have a maximum of 14 points. And moving unfed through desert, an extra hex would cost us an extra 6, which would be 15, so we couldn't do it. Now I'll just select unfed infantry army again, which will clear that selection. And this time I'll say, well, if the army was fed, let's see what the fed infantry army could do. Well, if they were going the same direction, it would be just 2 points to move down the road, and then it's 4 points to move within the desert, so they can move to there, that takes them to 6, there takes it to a cost of 10, there takes them to a cost of 14. So you can actually overlay one over the other. Let's see how that looks. So you can see the red numbers can get you as far as here, or if the path was clear, you could maybe get down to Athelion and get down to here, and the green numbers you can get that little bit further. Now I'm going to do another thing here under the map menu here. If you click on clear map items, it moves all that gunk away, and that can be quite useful if you've got several armies and you're wanting to try and coordinate them and boats and all the rest, and you've got a lot of information on the screen that you just need to clear away. One thing just to mention before I get onto characters and the information around them is you can also right click and get character move range on map. Now a character can move up to 12 hexes, so if I click this, suddenly you can see these yellow giant hexagon that I'm in the middle of, goes down to there, goes up to there, and if you were to count, that would be 12 hexes. So a character starting here can appear anywhere up to the edge of that hex. If they had the magic spell Long Stride, they could go a little bit further, so we'll do that. And that would move them a little bit further there. I'll just clear those map items there. But that can be really useful sometimes. And if there's somewhere you're wanting to move to and you can't get there in one turn, So I can do show character move range here. Let's say I'm wanting to get someone over to 2114. So I'll just quickly do that. If I then show, so right, I can't do it in one turn. Show character move range on map. So this boundary here shows where I have to be within to be able to move to 2114 on my second move. This shows where I need to be, where I can get to on my first. So this area around here is where I could move a character to from starting at 3224. They can move somewhere in this area, and the next turn they're going to be within range of 2114. So that can be useful for planning ahead. Right, clear map items. Go back to Barad Ungol, Centre of Operations for the Fire King. We then have a list of characters. Now, because this is a capital, we've got quite a lot of characters starting here. I won't go through them all. But with each character, it gives their name, which nation they belong to, because while they're all Fire King people in turn 0, after a while, you will have other people turning up at your nation, some welcome, some not so welcome. And information for them will also come up. So let's have a look. We've got Nazog for the Fire King, A30. It gives his skill ranks here. So he is a single class character. He's a rank 30 agent. CR is his challenge rank. So his challenge rank is 22, and H is his health. Hasn't been damaged yet. There's then space for his orders. Now, I've already filled orders out for him because I did that when I did turn 0 for this game, but usually they'd be blank. But if you want to change an order or fill it out for the first time, you just click on this little pencil here, and you can have a little drop-down menu with all the orders for that character, so you can scroll through and find it. So let's say we're going to do a national sale order, and when you select it, let's say we're going to drop nat sell orders and we're going to go and choose something else. Let's have assassinate 615. The parameters that are required are then there in drop-down boxes. So who are we going to try and assassinate? Let's try and assassinate Ren the Unclean, which is our boss, the Nazgul. We don't like him. We'll try and kill him off in the first turn. So Ren space T, that appears there. You only put in the first 5 characters to identify a character, the first 5 letters. And if there are spaces, as in a name Ren the Unclean, you just put in a space. So you put that in there. And if I were to click save, that would then, you'll notice up here, it would go from Nat Cell Leather to Assassinate Ren T. Right, I'm going to change that back now because I don't want to be trying to assassinate my boss who is a Nazgul. That would be a bad thing. So I'll just put that back. So instead, National Sell, Selling Leather, percentage 100. Just to show you another character down, Ren the Unclean. Here you can see a multi-classed character because they're a Nazgul. So they've got command rank of 30. In 40 with brackets, it's because they have an artifact that boosts their command rank. E30, so emissary rank 30, M50, so mage rank 50, S30 means they have a stealth artifact. Now if I click here on this little blue drop down arrow, I get some more information on them. And first of all, it lists the artifacts they have. So there's a +10 command artifact, and he's got a couple of combat artifacts that give a +500 boost to army strength. Also, being a mage, Ren the Unclean starts with some spells. So here are the list of the spells, and this is his percentage chance of being able to cast them. And I believe if you double click on a spell, yes, you get a little pop-up box with information on the spell. So if you're not sure what a spell does, double click and it says, yes, resistances. It's a defensive point. If it's a defensive spell, it's easy to cast. You have to be with an army. That's the order number you use to cast it. So you can get all sorts of useful information coming up there. Scrolling down, if there are any nation messages that come up relating to this hex, they'll be seen here. Now we've got quite a few in the first turn because in turn 0, if there are any other armies or holdings that you've got, I think it's armies that you've got, that will appear on other people's that appears on other people's maps. It will be flagged up here. And because I've downloaded the information from the Dog Lord there and the Ice King and numerous other Nazgul, and I appear on their maps, there I'm getting the same rumour reported every time that, oh yeah, there's holdings of the Fire King there. So there's this one here. You can see that's come from DOL, from the Dog Lord. This one here, that's same information from the Ice King. This one here, same one from the Dark Lieutenants. We've then got some information down here about the hex number, which mountain it is, and then how many points it would cost for a fed army, whether infantry or cavalry, to move in a set direction. So if this army wanted to move northwest, it couldn't, because that would be moving from mountain to mountain. But if it wanted to move northeast, if it was infantry, it would cost 2 points. If it was cavalry, it would cost 1 point, because they are the standardized costs for moving into a desert hex along a road. So that's the current hex view. That's where you can edit orders. You can also do army movement here. I really love the army movement function in JOverseer. This is because I used to fill it out by hand, and the number of times I would get confused and I would put down west instead of east, and my army would just head off the wrong direction. It was a common error. But what can happen this time is I've already put in the order here for Ucklug's army to move 1 hex west. Would you believe it? The Fire King's moving down the Ithil Pass to minus Ithil. And so when I click draw, it shows me where I go, and it shows me how many movement points it costs. So that's really useful. And you can have multiple armies with their movement, and you can click draw for all of them, so you can see all the different arrows that are moving and where they're moving around, and at what stage of the movement cycle they're moving. It really is a thing of beauty if your brain works in that way. Mine certainly does. Right, moving on from the current hex view. This will get more information as time goes by. So if there's a battle that occurs in a hex, you'll have a section with battle occurring, and you can click and it pulls up the narration box that tells you all about that battle. If there's an encounter, you'll get information on that. So really useful, lot of information there. Then I'll come down to this bottom section here. Just before I finish off, underneath here is the order editor. That's really good for helping you put your orders together and compiling them. So you make sure you get the absolute right number and the right order details for it. Let's have a look. Under here we've got some tabs underneath the map view. So you can click here to stay on the map, but there's information going through. I'll start with these two on the right. Is it just 2 or is it 3? No, these 3. These give you basic info. I'll just move my beautiful face down there. So this one here just is a place that tells you this is how big a camp is. This is how much it costs to build, how much to upgrade to a village. This is about fortifications and their costs. So lots of information there, just as an extra reference if you need them. There's order information there. This probably looks quite overwhelming at first, but you very soon get used to it. It basically just goes through all the orders by number, and it tells you what their code would be. It tells you what their parameters are, whether it's easy or difficult to do, extra issues with it. So some orders, such as downgrade relations, you have to be in a capital and you have to have command skill, whereas something like name new agent, again you have to be a capital, but you have to have agent skill. So again, just a little bit of an aid memoir, so you don't have to be constantly going and thumbing through the rulebook. And then spells, again, information, a lot of information here on spells. Particularly useful when you're putting orders together, as it reminds you what number the spell is and what order number you put it with. Because when you cast a spell, I will do videos on spells at some point. If you're casting, say, a law spell, you cast that on order 940, so it comes towards the end of the turn and picks up the state of play at the end of the turn. And you would cast order 9, you would submit order 940, and then it would ask which spell, and so you would say, oh, I'll do spell 428, which is locate artifact, and then it would require extra information of artifact ID, so you would say, I would put down artifact 62, and you would search for artifact 62. The other information along here, apart from map view, these are relating to the position as they are at the moment. Turn report view just gives a summary of everything that's new and that has changed during this turn. Now there won't be a huge amount in turn 0 because it is literally just depositing all the information which is there. But if I click down here on map options and move ahead a few turns, let's go ahead to turn 5. It'll take a little while just to flick round because there's a lot of data saved here. Oh no, we got there quite quickly. So once you've loaded everyone's XML files in and you've got all the information, if you want an overview of what happened and what changed, you can click on Turn Report View and just scroll through and we can see, all right, so these nations, the Witch King moved their capital, various other nation things happened. This is the amount of money people got from selling things to the market. Then characters section. These are characters who are either new characters or lost characters or injured characters. So you can see here, let's have a look. For the Cloud Lord, Grasty, he was a hostage and he was captured in combat, poor chap. And for Long Rider, Eviscera was killed in combat. We didn't do so well with characters that turn. However, we also have a huge number of characters that have joined us because Duns and Rudour must have sworn for the dark side at some point. I hope I haven't spoiled anything for any gameplay videos I do on Game 73. Yep, that's a spoiler. In turn 5, Rudour and the Duns both join us. Information then on population centres, so new population centres gained. So you can see here Quiet Avenger has named a camp in 3134 called Angrin. It's a camp, it's got 19 loyalty. So various information there. Artifacts, lost, transferred, located, lots of information there, and so on. And you can scroll through and see there's a huge amount going on. Gold is starting to be stolen. Cloud Lord's having a good job there. And agent actions, oh yes, better not look at those. That would spoil some fun for later in the game if ever I do some gameplay videos on that. Let's just say Elrond doesn't enjoy turn 5. So that's turn report view. Then the economy calculator. This is just for one economy at a time. Now there's a drop down menu here for the nations, so if you want to have a look at other nations you can, but I'm concerned with the Quiet Avenger, and I can see here how much I have in stores, how much I'm producing, and therefore how much I will have available to sell, because sales happen after production. So I'm making 526 leather every turn. I've already got 526 in stock, so if I were to sell them, it'll be 1052. It then tells you what the current sale price is, and it multiplies one by the other. If I were to sell all the leather, that would be just over 5,000 gold. It also says how much is available on the market and what the purchase price would be if you suddenly decided to buy anything. There are various other things you can do, like look at price history, so you can see whether prices have gone up or down. And then down here, this can be kind of useful. It tells you what the starting gold is. So Quiet Avenger here is starting with 43,000 gold in the bank. Tax revenue will be 10,000. That all works through. It takes off all the costs for maintenance, what your current tax rate is. And with the orders I've got and with selling that, I think I'm trying to sell leather, wasn't I? And I'm also selling timber. Overall, if I start at 43,000, I'll finish slightly up at about 47. I was having a look at Fire King as well, wasn't I? So Fire King down here. Fire King, slightly less starting gold, much less tax revenue because it's got a smaller tax base, but good gold production. So various information about what will be happening for him. If you've got an army that's camped on one of your pop centres, an enemy army, you know you're going to lose it, you can also factor that in so it works it out for you. So let's say I'm assuming I'm going to lose the major town of Barad Wath. So I've got 6,000 tax revenue, gold production 7,400. If I mark this, that Barad Wath is going to be taken out, it should have taken that out of the calculations, and did it? Yes. So if I click that, yep, so instead of finishing with 38,000, it will probably take me down to 29,000. So you can just use that if you know you're going to be losing a pop centre. You can also click on the next tab along, Team Economy, and this shows you a scan across the whole of your team, or at least those who you've been able to load in XML files for. So, yep, we've just been looking at Quiet Avenger and Fire King there. We know about them. But let's have a look across the whole team. You can see there are 1 or 2 nations that are really running at quite a loss. The whole of the Dark Servants are running at a loss. That's quite common for startup, particularly the Witch King. But fear not, because they're able to sell some produce to make some up, and no doubt they'll have troops dying in combat soon, so that's not a problem. Also, everyone starts off with a tax rate of 40, so if they bump that up to 60, that'll also get extra money in. But there's information here on amount of products you've got, and yeah, that's useful just to have a look overall at this team. If you go a little way into the game, and it's a very good way of seeing which of your team, at a glance, which of your teammates are really struggling and need to have some gold transferred to them to keep them afloat, and which are doing rather well and can be politely asked to send some gold to the poorer nations. Okay, I'll just click back to the map function and move my beautiful face up here. We're going to have a look now at this section down here, orders, characters and all the rest. Again, there is a little drop down menu here, so you can choose which particular nation you're wanting to have a look at for doing the orders with. And I'm going to click on Fire King because we were looking at them, and you can see here, I'll just make this section at the bottom a little bit bigger, move that up there. Yep, and you can see here we've got a list of all the characters by name, the hex of where they are, it's in bold if they're in the capital, and it then gives you their stats. So we're looking at Nazog, an agent, rank 30, and you can remember we've given him the order to nat sell, so to sell from everywhere in the nation, leather and 100% of it. And then he's also going to do the same, do an order again, and this is an agent order in which he's going to name an agent called Gertlag, who's going to be female. That will cost 5,000 gold. And that comes directly across from this information over here. So let's see what would happen if we changed this. Let's say we want Gertlag to be male. At the moment it hasn't changed, but as soon as I hit this little save button here, there you go. This character will be male when they are named. So you can use the order editor on the right hand side of the screen and look at all of the orders that have been compiled so far on the left hand side of the screen, and it can be very useful just to go through character by character, making sure you've got the orders done for them. It will tell you if you've missed anyone out. That's really useful. Yeah, and you just get all that information through there. Just go through some of the next tabs before I talk about submitting orders and getting your orders so you can copy them and email them to your allies so they can double check. So we have a tab here called Characters Advanced. This is so you can look across all the character information there is. So you can look across all characters that are known or characters just for one nation. So let's have a look, say Cloud Lord. Would you believe it? The Cloud Lord, I'll just sort that there. Come on, sort. The Cloud Lord starts off with 4 pretty handy agents. Well, isn't that a surprise, given that it's the premier agent nation? And scrolling down, right at the bottom, you have the option to look for just those characters belonging to the free people that you have information about, just those that are dark servants, those that are neutral, etc., etc. So this can be kind of useful. Let's say you're wanting to have a look across the dark servants and you're wanting to find someone who's a really good commander. And then you can sort an order by commander here, and you can say, wow, this guy here, Ashdurbuk Zalg, he's at Hex 2006. So that's all the way over here in frozen Angmar up in the north. And he's got, he plays for the Witch King. He's got a command rank of 60, which is buffed up to 85 because he must have an artifact. So that's some information about him, and that's just ways in which you can get information on some of the characters that are around. Spellcasters tab. This is really useful for seeing what sort of spellcasting capacity you have. Let's say you need to know if someone has any of the spells for let's say any healing spells. Oh, lots of people have got healing spells. Right, that's probably not the best example. So let's have a look. Has anyone got any, well, Spirit Mastery. Oh, we have got some Spirit Mastery spells. That's a surprise. That's good. Okay, so you're wanting to know what the state of play is with Spirit Mastery, and you can pull this up and see that these are the named characters. Murazor, that's the Witch King to you and me, and it tells you where they are, their nation, what their mage rank is, what their bonus is. So if they've got an artifact, that gives you a bonus, and then the different spells, so weakness, sickness, and curses, and what their casting rank is. So there's a good mix of things you can look for there. Next tab, very useful, is for artifacts. Again, you can put it down to search just for, at the moment, it's looking for all artifacts. So because all artifacts, it's known what they are and what their abilities are, broadly what their abilities are, they're in there already. But if you want, you can just go and have a look for those that are owned by the Dark Servants. So let's just have a look. And suddenly you see those that are owned by a particular nation. It's Dog Lord, Dark Lord, Ice King, Dragon Lord, and so forth. All the Dark Servants people are there. And you can say, well, oh, secondary powers. Oh, access to Spirit Mastery. Murazor has something called Nalagirth, which is an evil combat artifact with access to Spirit Mastery. That's cool. He's the only one that has that. Has anyone got any agent artifacts? Shall we ask for that? Oh, yes, there are. There are 4 agent artifacts, and these are the ones that they are, and it gives you all the information on them. That's really useful. Next click is nation messages. There probably won't be any, well, the only ones we're picking up in turn 0 are the ones I mentioned, where the map flags up where all the different nations are. But this is useful to look at. It will tell you any rumours that have got picked up. So, you know, such and such a person, there's rumours of them having an encounter in such and such a hex, so that can be useful information. Or gold has been, 10,000 gold has been transferred from Imladris to Minas Tirith. Just gives you extra information by collating it across all the different turns, so that's useful. Relations, I've just messed this up, hang on a minute. If you ever double click and mess it up like I do frequently, you can just go to Preferences, Restore Layout, select Classic Layout, go Yes, and we're back to where we were. So that was a learning experience for us. So if you go to Relations, this will show us, and I'll need to make this big again. I'm having a right time, aren't I? Here we go. Yep, pop that back. So have a look at the relations, and this just shows the nation relations between nations we know and what they think of everyone else. Being turn 1, they think they dislike all free peoples. We are tolerant to all the other Dark Servants, and we're neutral to all the other neutrals. If we go on 5 turns, let's go to turn 5. The same thing. Suddenly you'll see that we're starting to hate some of the free peoples because we're wanting to get maximum bonuses by having the right nation relations set with them. Okay, and next we'll have a look at armies. Once again, you can set it so you can only see the armies for the Dark Servants. That should be possible. Nope. No, okay, well, all armies, and you can sort them by various functions. Let's, for example, have a look, sorting it by EQNHI, equivalent naked heavy infantry, and that just gives you an idea where the big chunky armies are. So we can have a look at this and we can see that, oh yeah, the Witch King has got a big chunky army around about 2006. And scroll down and you can find that the Corsairs have a little teeny tiny army that's not very strong at all, which is I've got an equivalent naked HLI of 50. Wow. Okay. Same information there you can have for pop centers. So you can go for a particular nation. We were looking at Fire King, weren't we? Yep, so there's the Fire King. So you can see we've got 2 major towns and 4 camps. This is their loyalty. Now this is a few turns in, so you can see loyalty has changed a bit. And this is the info source for turn 5. And this just tells you what it is they are producing each turn. And Next, move on to companies. We hadn't formed any companies at this point. A company is basically a set of characters travelling together. You have to have one character who is acting as a company commander, who has command rank, and they move people around. And others, anyone else, they don't have to have command rank, will then join. And this just helps you to keep track of those companies and will tell you who is in those companies. And finally, encounters, which gives you lots of information of which encounters have happened where. Normally at this stage of the game, 5 turns in, there are quite a few encounters happening because we've started locating artifacts and sending people off to pick them up. Right, well that's a bit of a crash course. One last thing just to mention, bottom right hand corner, you've seen me switch. You have these 2 tabs here for Order Editor and Map Options. Order Editor is really useful when you're working out the orders for your particular nation and working out who's doing what. Just realised looking over the left here, I suddenly thought, blimey, there are some more characters. Of course it is, because I've moved to turn 5 and I've named Agrum, Belgarnak and Gertlag by then, so I have extra characters to play with. If you go to Map Options, just click on that, there are 2 really useful things here. I mean, you can use this to set particular preferences. So if you want names of population centres, you can click that, and suddenly they appear. So you can, instead of just talking about, oh yeah, let's have a look at the place at 3316, you can say let's look at Thorontir. But I personally don't have that one on there. But yeah, there are 2 things that are really useful. The first one is which turn you're on. So you can click and you can look back. Now this will go up as far as the last turn. Oh, I've given it away. This game went to turn 46. Bit of a monster. And that's really useful if you're on, say, turn 12 and you think, oh, actually, where was that Free People army that's coming in towards us? Where was it last turn? You can just go back one. Or you can go and check other information from earlier turns. So that's really useful. And the other thing which is really useful, particularly for planning, is this thing, Fog of War. Fog of War shows you switches on and off which bits of the map you can see. At the moment you can see there are some hatched areas, some hexes with lines on. These are affected by the Fog of War for the current view for all the Dark Servants. So we can't see what's going in or going on in those areas of the map. And that's really useful. It's one thing that's a bit unfortunate is you see here the difference between 2623 and 2723. It's not very easy to see the grey hatched lines sometimes on mountains. So sometimes it's a bit tricky to know if you're looking at a mountain hex whether it's off your enemy's view or not. And sometimes it's quite good just to go to the Middle-earth Play-by-Mail wiki put together by Raven Zachary and have a look at some of the turn files you can download and have a look at the actual physical map for that particular nation that would be looking at it and see whether the hex you're aiming for is or isn't on their map. But that's really useful for checking where you can see, but even more useful for seeing what your opponents can see. So we're playing here as the Free People, as the Dark Servants. Let's see the Fog of War for the Free People. So we switch to that and suddenly we realise there's all these areas in Mordor which they can't see. There's a big area around the back of Mordor they can see because the Easterlings, we believe, went and joined the Free People. Boo, hiss. But if we go up here, we can also see that, for example, there's a little bit of Angmar up here that they can't see. Okay, and there's a bit of the Withered Heath up at the top that they can't see. And, so there's some interesting areas off map, that they can't see a good chunk of Fangorn Forest or the mountains down here. So that can be really useful for thinking of where am I going to plant a camp? Because if you plant it close to your enemy but they can see it, they'll just send an army out to burn it. But if it's just off their map, so let's say you plant a camp here in Fangorn Forest, they wouldn't see that immediately. Or if you're doing army movement, you might think, right, where can my army get to so that they won't see me, but I'll be able to come out of the Fog of War next turn and really do them in. So that's really kind of a fun thing. Okay, I'm going to go back to turn 0 just briefly. Okay, so we're looking at the Fire King, Nazog, etc., etc. Should mention just a few things up here. Let's see if there's anything up there. A lot of these are fairly standard pull down menu things. So save game. Whenever you do a lot of things, it will constantly prompt you to save the game. Always accept, because the number of times I haven't saved and I thought I'd updated an order and I hadn't, and that order didn't get processed. It's really kind of annoying. The tools here, a lot of it, this accesses some of the information that I've already shown you on some of the tabs, like economies and team economy, but there are some other useful things that you can explore through here. Advanced, if you want to say change allegiances, let's say you're, so we know that the free people and the dark servants are fixed, but as the game goes on, some of them might get eliminated, and some of them might go from neutral to free people or from neutral to dark servants, so you can change that there. And another really useful thing is import orders from text, which I'll come on to in a moment. Map objects here, you can have a fiddle around with some of these. I use clear map items the most. A lot of it is just setting it up so how it looks. You can do some things so certain things get highlighted on the map if you're looking for them. Preferences, I don't play with these a huge amount apart from restore layout for when I click the wrong thing. But again, you can use these if you're comfortable with computers, just for fiddling around with the exact preferences and how they work. And then a mixture of things on help, including extra information on orders, spells and so forth, which we came across in the tabs. But a really, really useful thing under the game menu are these two things here: check orders and send orders. Check orders, unsurprisingly, will check through the orders that you have written and just make sure there isn't anything untoward, and we'll do that in a moment. Just to say, JOverseer is probably about 90 to 95% accurate. There are some things that it won't pick up on if you're doing clever stuff, and it will say, oh, that's a problem. For example, if you are what am I thinking about? Yeah, if you're moving an emissary to a population centre, to transfer that population centre to an ally, and the ally is sending an emissary, you would give the order 949 transfer population centre, whatever it is, no, transfer ownership, and you will give the name of the character you're transferring to. It will look, if that character isn't there, it'll flag it up as a problem. What it isn't taking into account is that in the other person's orders, by then they will have moved that character in there. So sometimes it will say there's a problem or there might be an issue, and it's okay for you to look and say, actually, in my assessment, that's not a problem. Movement orders and whether you have food or not can be another issue. There are a mixture of things where, and using JOverseer, you will pick up on those. By and large, check orders is very useful, and it's useful to run your orders through this before sharing your draft orders with your team. So let's go and check orders. We'll check for Fire King, we'll click OK, and we're now going to get asked some questions, because the game needs to know a few things to know how to assess whether the orders will work. So, first of all, information about armies. Are these armies fed? Yes, they are. Is Skargnak a company commander? Well, he isn't, so that's fine, that's unticked. And then it'll go through and it gives a little green light and all of these to say, yep, that order is legal, and that's fine. Now down here, 850, oh, it says it tried to move to an invalid hex, so and it also flags up an amber, which is you can do it, but it might not resolve as you expect. And it's saying that there's minus Ithil, which is an enemy town with a fort, which will probably block movement, but I'm only moving one hex in there, so that's fine. And I'll just click and OK. So let's have a look at that order. Did I fiddle around? I fiddled around with it, didn't I? So which character was it that I was moving? Was it Shagrat? Let's have a look. Oh, hang on. It was down here. Was it Uklug? Who knows? Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a little thing there, a little exclamation mark. So let's just flag that up. Right. Okay. Well, I don't see a problem with that. So we're just going to move west. We'll save that. and we'll draw that in. Yep, that seems to be fine. So we'll go again, game, check orders for Fire King. Okay, we'll check through those. And this time if we look, and yes, that movement order is now actually written properly so that when Middle-earth Games receive this and their program checks it, it won't throw a wobbly and I won't get turns back and find that Ucklurg failed to move, and as a result the whole team's plans have fallen apart. So that's good. Now once you've checked your orders and you've got them just how you want them, you can submit them directly to Middle-earth Games, or you can copy them and paste them and send them out around your team by email, which I would always advise. It's always good, and to do it early, you know, not the night before, but a week before if you can, so that your team can have a look and it'll spark ideas for them of how they can work with you. So let's have a look. You go to send orders. Now, this pulls up how it would, if you were to write it out by hand or type it in manually, how the orders would look. 520 Infior, 870 Movjoin, 3034 Fuina, and so forth. Now you can copy these to clipboard, okay, and that means you're going to be able to paste them if you were to go straight over to an email program. And you know, I mentioned early on about import orders from text. That's a really useful thing. Let's say you've just received an email from someone and they're saying, here are my draft orders, what do you think? So you can come, import orders from text, and you can copy those in whatever it is they've sent them to you, then click paste, so all those orders appear, click OK, and it will tell you 16 orders are imported, and suddenly those orders for that particular team will appear, and you'll be able to go in and look. Let's have a look. So I'll have a look over here. Oh, if we had the orders for Cloudlord, and we could see, oh right, Aguilar's going to do this, Aradaugal's going to do that, Arenis is going to do the other. We can see what they're trying to do. When you're ready to send your orders in, you go here and you just click submit, and it'll ask you some questions and it'll ask you to save, and it will send them off by magic to Middle-earth Games in Cardiff, and you should get an automatic email response back in the next sort of half hour or so saying it's been received. Sometimes you will send them in and then you'll think, oh, I want to change. That's fine. You just go through, you make your changes, you save them, you double check them, and then you click submit again. And up here it tells you which orders version they are. Now I've already submitted one lot of orders when I first played this game, so if I was to submit this now, it would go from to orders version 2. If I was to come back and check it again, that would be orders version 3. I'm not going to send it in live now because it would confuse the hell out of Clint that he received orders for a game that is due to be processed back in 2018. So I'm not going to do that, but you would just do that and you'd click submit and it would ask you to save them, always save, and then it would run through quite a bit and eventually it will say it's been sent, and you can breathe a huge sigh of relief until you get your turns back. Right, well, I think that's as much as I can think of showing you for this rather extended talk through of JOverseer. If you haven't registered for a game yet and you're waiting for one, you obviously won't have any XMLs, but I'm sure if you were to go and post on the Middle-earth forums and say, has anyone got some spare XML files I could have a look at just so I can see what's going on, I'm sure some nice person there would be able to furnish you with some, just so you can pull this up and have a look for yourself and think, oh, if I was the Fire King, how would I be planning? Just planning ahead. Inevitably, you won't be the Fire King. You know, if you ever think, oh, I'm going to be this nation, you'll always end up with another one, and it'll be completely different to what you thought, and great fun with it. But I'm sure if you went onto the Middle-earth forums, got an account there and just said, I'm a new player, I've downloaded JOverseer, has anyone got XML files for turn 0 they could put in zip file, email across to me, I'm sure someone there would oblige. So I think I've covered everything for now. Thank you for bearing with me through this rather lengthy and extended gallop through everything that JOverseer has to offer. It's a great tool, particularly for the sort of game Middle-earth Play-by-Mail is, where you have 2 weeks between turns, where you're dealing with anything from usually around 10 to 12 other people in working through what your orders are going to be and trying to coordinate action against the enemy, where you've got to share information, and where there is a real complexity in how you compile and write your orders and submit them. It really helps take a lot of the work out of that and straightens out a lot of the problems that happen if it's just left to plain old human beings trying to write down east or west and remember which way is which. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, do click like below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, do that. Got to say all the cheesy YouTube stuff. And yeah, I'll be along soon with some more videos. Until now, this is the Middle Earth Play by Mail fan channel. I hope you've enjoyed it, and see you next time.